This Josh Allen, that is.
Great. I mean, unless they're going to get a better receiver out there. But Josh Allen should be telling them privately, you don't want to upset your receivers, get me a number one. Get me a number one. And Mike Evans obviously is a number one. Unless you think Evans at 32, I think he is not going to be the same guy. But I think he'd be great in Buffalo. I think he's just what the doctor ordered there. Shaheed is
not a number one.
No,
but a
that's the thing.
player.
He would be good there. I think he's probably a slightly better, maybe version of than Khalil Shakir. Obviously brings the punt, the kick return aspect of it. Receivers, I think they're probably the same level.
But they're they're just different in that
right.
Shaheed does almost all his damage on deep passes.
Yes.
And so Shakir does most of it on, passes caught at the line of scrimmage after.
So they could be a decent tandem, but I would rather Evans. I think that's perfect for them, but what's not to like about that?
I'll go very quickly so that Wiles can go. I don't think there's any bigger Rashid Shaheed fan in the media than me. I loved the trade for Seattle. I think he's awesome.
Worked out.
He is also not what Buffalo needs. Like, he would help any team.
He would help, but he's
what Buffalo needs is a possession receiver. What they haven't had since Diggs left, to be totally honest. And so I do think Mike Evans is a great fit there. A guy that you can, Keenan Allen type, you know what I mean? That you can rely on 3rd and 7, that he's going to run the right route and get open. Shaheed's more of an explosive big play guy. But Kevin Wildes, who's the guy that we have to thank for free agency?
Who?
Baseball player, Curt Flood.
Oh, Curt Flood, of course.
Kevin Wildes can't stand, wishes there was no free agency.
No, I love free agency, but as you know, I have my finger on the pulse of everything that's going on in media.
Yeah.
And Mike Evans' agent said, you know what we're looking at? All 32 teams. Like, you are? Really? You're looking at what the Saints are up to, Mike Evans' agent? You're looking to see what the Raiders are going to look like with Mendoza? I think this whole thing, and then later on it was reported, like, oh, you know what we're looking for? A championship, a great coach, a great quarterback, a team to win. Okay, so you went from all 32, so now we got the list whittled down. If Mike Evans leaves Tampa Bay, I will cook this into a donut and eat it.
What?
All right. He is going to cook that piece of paper and eat it. Look, let's be honest about this entire situation. If you can acquire Mike Evans for a reasonable price, then of course you would love to have him on your roster. The man is a future Hall of Famer with a historic streak of consecutive 1,000-yard seasons. Nobody is disputing his talent or his resume. The problem with Mike Evans, as things currently stand, is that I have no idea how you can feel genuinely confident in his ability to stay on the field. The Buffalo Bills cannot afford to find themselves in a position where they have invested heavily, philosophically, strategically, and financially, in Mike Evans as a centerpiece of their receiving core, only for him to be sidelined for 6 to 8 weeks with some soft tissue issue. We have seen this movie before. The Bills cannot be in a situation where they are holding their breath, hoping that Mike Evans will be healthy and available by the divisional round of the playoffs. That is simply not a viable strategy for a team with Super Bowl aspirations. You cannot operate that way. You cannot build your offensive identity around a player whose availability is that uncertain. Now, adding a player like Rashid Shaheed, that is a different conversation entirely. I think there would absolutely be some magic there, some explosive potential that could unlock new dimensions of this offense. But that type of addition, to me, feels more like acquiring Xavier Worthy than it does a Tyreek Hill. It is a complementary piece, a role player with specific utility, rather than a foundational transformation. So adding a Rashid Shaheed is great in the right context. When you have an established core, think Jackson Smith and Jigba alongside Cooper Kupp or Devonta Smith paired with A.J. Brown, it functions as an and. It is the finishing touch, the complementary weapon that elevates an already functional unit. Honestly, this was exactly the dynamic when the Los Angeles Rams added Davante Adams. It worked because they also had Puka Nacua already established in the offense. It was an addition that fit into an existing structure rather than trying to create one from scratch. I specifically called out the Bills for not pursuing Davante Adams when he was available because that deal represented tremendous value. Here was a player you could reasonably trust to stay healthy at a financial commitment that was modest relative to his production and pedigree. That was a missed opportunity. If I were constructing this roster, I would be more inclined to pursue someone in the mold of A.J. Brown. But obviously, that scenario comes with its own complications. You would be looking at a trade, which means surrendering legitimate draft capital and taking on a significant financial commitment. On the plus side, I have far more confidence in A.J. Brown's ability to stay on the field consistently. His durability track record inspires more trust. However, I do think his production has shown some signs of decline recently. I'm not placing that entirely on the Eagles' offense or on Jalen Hurts. There are multiple factors at play, but I can still envision him doing significant damage in the Buffalo Bills' offense, with Josh Allen throwing him the football. That said, I can also understand why the front office might hesitate to make a serious play for him, given the combination of age, contract, and draft capital required. Here's what I find somewhat ironic. In a strange way, I would actually feel better about the Bills' offseason if they added both Mike Evans and Rashid Shaheed. Think about it. If you told me they had signed Rashid Shaheed, my reaction would be, okay, that is a solid move. I am interested to see what they can do with that element. But it would not feel like the complete solution. Similarly, if they only added Mike Evans, I would say, yeah, that is good, that helps. But again, it would not feel comprehensive. If they secured both of them, then I would look at the roster and think, okay, now I feel significantly better about their chances. There is something about the combination of reliability and explosiveness that feels more complete than either piece individually. I keep coming back to A.J. Brown as the archetype, because his trade happened so quickly, almost in the blink of an eye. And listen, the Bills executed a similar maneuver when they acquired Stephon Diggs, and for a while, it worked out spectacularly. It obviously worked out better for the Eagles, because they reached 2 Super Bowls and won 1, and they already had Devontae Smith in place, so it felt like they were building on an existing foundation rather than creating one from scratch. The challenge right now is identifying what other receivers even fit that profile. The closest contemporary example is probably Justin Jefferson, and it is difficult for me to envision the Vikings moving on from him unless the upcoming season is an unmitigated disaster, and Jefferson essentially demands a trade. You have to move me. I cannot do this anymore. And the Vikings reluctantly agree. But that scenario feels unlikely. They are not going to be eager to part with a talent like that. Still, Jefferson represents the closest thing to that caliber of impact player potentially becoming available. The bottom line is that you want to see the Bills acquire that difference maker. Look at the Kansas City Chiefs. They are reportedly exploring a reunion with Tyreek Hill because they recognize they need something at the receiver position. They need that dependability, that reliability, that versatility. The Bills had seemingly nothing in critical moments last season. I am not going to rehash the entire rant, but on the most important drive of the Buffalo Bills season, and it pains me to even bring this up, they had multiple passes directed at receivers whom Josh Allen had targeted a combined total of maybe 12 times during the entire regular season. In the biggest play of the year, he was throwing to a wide receiver he had connected with perhaps a handful of times all season. You simply cannot have that. It is organizational malpractice to find yourself in that situation. This circles back to the Mike Evans concern. You cannot have your marquee receiver miss 9 games, be inactive for weeks, and then find yourself in January hoping that he is healthy enough for the wild card round and ready to contribute at a high level. That is not a sustainable way to build a contender. You cannot put yourself in that type of precarious situation. The stakes could not possibly be higher for this franchise right now. I am genuinely curious to see how they navigate this offseason, but I desperately want to avoid any half measures. No more half measures. They need to execute this correctly. They did it right before with the Diggs acquisition. It transformed the offense and elevated Josh Allen's game. Diggs just ultimately became problematic in the way that some personalities eventually do, but I also think there has been significant maturation and growth on Josh Allen's part since then. If you brought in someone with that caliber of talent, not Diggs specifically, but that type of impact, it could go a long way. And that is where a combination like Shaheed and Evans becomes appealing, particularly Evans, who has always carried himself with professionalism and stability. But I have to be honest, my 2 most vivid memories of Mike Evans recently are both injuries. I think it was against the Baltimore Ravens and then again against the Detroit Lions. Those images are burned into my brain. I think, all right, Mike Evans is healthy, let's go. And then immediately, he is hurt again. I hate that my perception has become so zoomed in on his availability issues, but when your team is in a Super Bowl or bust window, you cannot afford to have that lingering uncertainty. Obviously, any player can get hurt at any time. That is the nature of football. But with Evans, there would be so much breath holding, so much anxiety with every hit. You do not want to be in a situation where your big move is chasing past production rather than addressing present needs. That was the concern with the Chiefs acquiring DeAndre Hopkins last season, or the Bills adding Amari Cooper. Those moves felt like chasing echoes rather than building for now. So we will have to see what direction they choose. Those are just my thoughts. I would genuinely love to hear yours. What do you all think about the Buffalo Bills and their receiver situation? Should they pursue Mike Evans? Is Rashid Shaheed the right target? Do you think that combination makes sense, or is there another move they should be considering? Let me know your perspective. I read every single comment that comes through, so whether you agree with me or think I am completely off base, either way, let's generate some discussion. Let's get into some spirited debates. But ultimately, let's just have fun with it. Please do consider subscribing to the channel. We are building an amazing community here, and I genuinely love seeing you be part of it. My goal is to create something we all feel genuinely connected to, something we are truly excited to be part of. I believe we are well on our way to making that happen. Do not forget to give this video a thumbs up. It genuinely helps with visibility and keeps the algorithm happy. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time.